Hey, good morning. Welcome to Coffee Chat. We have been talking this week about, am I helping my adult child or am I making things worse? And yesterday we talked about a cycle, right? That about repeating and resetting and doing the same thing over and over again. And today we're going to talk about reminders. Are your reminders really helping the situation? So, welcome to Coffee Chat. I'm Jonathan. I will be with you in just a moment. All right, we are ready to go. Welcome to Coffee Chat. My name is Jonathan. I am a family therapist, and I'm the one that hosts the YouTube channel and the Facebook group, Parents of Adult Children Failure to Launch. That's a great resource for you to get on, and a great community, great support. And also, don't forget my email list. I will send you some tools to help if you are that parent with a struggling young adult or maybe an older adult. This week, we have been talking about how do you know if you are helping or making things worse? A very common dilemma that parents face when their children are struggling, right? Is what I'm doing helping or is it making things worse? Right? And then yesterday, we really honed in on the rescue, reset, repeat cycle, right? The cycle where things just keep happening over and over. And just when you think you're on the right track, it falls apart again. Why that happens and what to do. Watch yesterday's live stream, Coffee Chat, if you want that one, because that was a good one, right? And then today, I want to dig in a little bit more and I want to talk about reminders, right? Are your reminders helping or are they making things worse? So think about it this way. Actually, tell me if this scenario makes sense. If you've heard this before, and apologize, let me just get this real quick here. I want to make sure. Okay, so anyone who wants to chat with me today, that's what this is all about, right? Is being able to chat, and I'm just making sure the chat is up, being able to talk, being able to interact. So I'm going to give a little information, a little talk, and then if anyone has anything that they would like to ask, please do. Also, a lot of the questions that I get, and I know a lot of people are watching this after the fact, and that's totally fine. All right, so I got my chat up. That is totally fine, totally cool. So just put it in the comments, right? Send me a message. And many times I answer those questions the following day or maybe the next week we go on that topic. So let's get back to reminders. Is this scenario familiar to you? Hey, did you apply for that job yet? Did you call the doctor? Don't forget your appointment. Have you emailed your professor yet? You said you were going to take care of that today. Have you? Right? Reminders. Do you feel like you're constantly giving reminders, that you're constantly prompting your adult child? Right? The parent's thinking is completely understandable, right? It's basically, if I don't remind them, they won't do it. And you're kind of right? Well, maybe it's true, but that might be exactly where the problem is, right? If they're not going to do it unless you remind them, where's the end to that cycle, right? So the central question is, if they only remember because you remind them, whose responsibility is it really, right? And you got to think about that. And whose responsibility does it need to be? So why do you remind them? Because reminding works, right? Which is why it's so easy to get stuck doing it, right? You remind them, they do the thing, and the crisis is avoided. Everybody moves on. But you may have solved the immediate problem without helping them develop the ability to manage it themselves. Right? So I want you to ask yourself, what would happen if you didn't remind them? That's where it gets uncomfortable, right? Because maybe they would miss the appointment. Maybe they wouldn't turn something in, right? Maybe they'd be late. So why would you allow that to happen when you could prevent it? And I know what a lot of parents are thinking, right? If I prevent that bad thing from happening, then my kids are going to see what I did for them, right? They're going to see how that was a close call, and they're going to learn from it, right? And then they're going to start doing it themselves. But then why do you have to keep reminding? And how long are you going to have to remind them before they catch on? How many times are you going to have to prompt them, fix things, clean up the mess, right? Sometimes experiencing the consequence is the reason to make a change, right? But that's where it gets uncomfortable, right? As parents, I don't want them to get further stuck. I don't want them to be hurt by this situation, right? I don't want them to be in a situation that cannot be resolved. That's where our minds go as parents. There's a lot more room than you realize for your kids to adjust and change and tolerate struggle. But we'll get into that in a minute. I want you to pay attention to resentment for a moment. What do I mean by that? Resentment is often the indicator that things are out of balance. Think about yourself. Are you starting to get resentful that you have to remind them that you are the one that is keeping them going, right? You're keeping this thing going. You're constantly reminding them. You're constantly prompting them. You're constantly fixing things. And maybe it feels like they're taking advantage of you, right? Maybe you feel like they're using you, right? That is an indication, right? Those feelings, that resentment, that you are carrying weight and responsibility that is not yours to carry, right? You may feel like you're being taken advantage of and being used because in a way you are, right? For your adult child, right? If they don't really have to stay on top of things, right? As long as somebody's coming around to make sure it happens or clean up the mess, why do they need to change, right? Maybe they even want to change, but there's not a real consequence, right? They haven't really felt the pain of it. And believe me, I'm not trying to make your kids feel pain and discomfort. We're not trying to make them miserable. That is not the strategy. That backfires, that hurts relationships, and it does that kind of thing. At the same time, you can't remove all the struggle out of their life, right? Just like you needed struggle in your life to change, right? You can't remove all that. It's all part of the process. We got to find the balance. I also want you to pay attention to resentment in your child. Do you feel like they get resentful towards you? You get the attitude, you get the pushback, right? When you're trying to remind them, when you're trying to prompt them, when you're trying to motivate them, does it feel like they're getting resentful? Well, let me let you know something. They're adults, right? Or they're older teenagers. They're pretty much right there, right? They're adults, and they're never going to feel confident. They're never going to feel right having someone manage something in their life that they need to be managing for themselves, right? It's kind of this weird push and pull that we get into, right? It's kind of this enabling kind of situation where I know I should be doing this for myself, right? But it's a lot easier if someone else will do it for me. But then if I let someone else do it for me, then I start to get feeling badly about myself and resentful that I'm not doing it for myself, right? And it's a cycle where I know I need to be doing it. I'm capable of doing it. I don't want anyone else to tell me to do it, but it sure is nice that somebody's doing it for me, right? And then this resentment builds. And a lot of times you don't even realize what the heck's going on, right? You're just trying to help them and they're not doing it, but they're mad at you for helping them, right? The answer is when they start doing it for themselves, the load is taken off of you. They feel better about who they are. Things improve, right? That's the dynamic. That's the direction. Right? So another point about reminders. This whole thing, it's all about them learning how to take responsibility over their life, right? There's a big difference between teaching and taking over, right? Because taking over the responsibility, they don't learn, right? I want you to move into a teaching role, right? And here's the balance I'm addressing here. Some parents hear this like, okay, that's it. No more reminders, no more prompting. I'm just going to leave them to do it all on their own. And then they crash and burn, or maybe they figure it out, but they're likely to feel abandoned. They're likely to not understand why you've taken such a distant approach to them, right? Even if they do it, there's a cost to the relationship, and I don't want that for you, right? We need to be intentional about this. We need to let them know that that things are changing and why they're changing. And here's the other piece of it, right? I said teaching, guiding. They might not legitimately know how to do what they need to do. They might be really poor at scheduling and organizing and even reminding themselves. Like maybe they have a poor sense of time management, clock awareness. And they need to build those skills. Sometimes as functioning adults, as parents, things seem so simple, so basic. But, just like you driving a car, right? You've done it so many times. It's so basic, but you just can't throw someone in a car and say, go, right? And that's with so many emotional things and mental things and physical things, right? We don't want to assume that they can do it all, especially if they haven't managed their life on that level. Right? So it needs to be more organized, more planful, right? So there's room to be able to have these conversations, to say, it seems like remembering appointments has been difficult, right? I want you to be able to figure out a system. Do you want to figure out a system, right? Do you want to find a way to make that easier? I see you struggling with this, whatever that thing is, right? It's a way of talking with them and saying, you need to do this. I'm going to stop waking you up in the morning because you're 25 years old or you're however I'm going to stop doing this for you because you can do this, right? What's your plan? What kind of help do you need, right? So your job is not to be the permanent human notification app, right? That's too much. You're going to move to problem solving, right? From reminding to problem solving with them. So it's not going to be like, don't forget you have to call the doctor tomorrow, or don't forget you need to, schedule your next week at work or whatever it is, right? It's going to be more of like, hey, how are you going to make sure you remember to do that, right? You've shifted the thinking to them. So all that. Calendar, alarm, note, to-do list, whatever works, right? You're going to help them with that if they will let you, right? Some things they're going to say, I got this, right? I don't need your help. I don't need your reminders. I don't need you to do this. You're like, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. And they're saying, sure, yep, I don't need to talk about it. That's fine, right? They're either going to do it or not, or somewhere in between. Right? That can be the opportunity to come back afterwards and say, hey, I noticed you're still kind of struggling with that. Do you want to talk about it? You got to be clear with your boundaries too, right? And then even talking it through, like what's it going to look like if they don't keep that job, right? If they don't keep up with their classes, right? And it's not threats. You're helping. That's a skill, like thinking down the line. What I feel like doing is staying in bed. What I feel like doing is staying up late. But what's that going to look like tomorrow? What's it going to look like later in the year? So don't become their system, help them develop a system. That's big, right? And your energy is moving forward, right? That's what we want, right? We're talking about shifting from all your energy in maintaining things to your energy moving things forward, right? So here's a question I want you to think about today. If I stopped reminding, what would happen, right? If you stopped reminding, what would happen? And then you're trying to figure out like what is actually your child's to own and what you're still carrying for them. And you got to start making that shift. Now, I know this is not always easy. It's an easy concept, but what that really looks like, the struggle. I've been there with parents. I know what a struggle it is because it does create a struggle, right? When you go from managing things to putting it on them, and it creates a crisis, it creates tension. That's real. That's real. But I don't want you to give up. It's the right path, and there are resources to help you. That's why I want you to get on that Facebook group, get on my email list, and find out about some more supports. If you want that level of support, it is there for you, right? More ideas, more specific for those that want to dig deep, right? So those links and things are in the chats, they're in the comments, they're in all that stuff. Okay. So I want you to remember this, right? With this topic this week, the goal isn't for your adult child to remember because you reminded them, right? You want to shift that around. The goal is for them to learn what to do when no one is there to remind them. See the difference there, right? You're stepping back. They're going to struggle. And then that struggle is the opportunity for them to learn. And that point right there is where I see most people need support. Most parents need help in knowing where that balance is, right? Because they love the idea of not having to manage my kid's life anymore, right? For them to be able to do it. But how do we actually do it, right? So, final thing, action step for you, right? What is one thing you find yourself repeatedly reminding your adult child to do? And what do you think would happen if you stopped reminding them? There's a question for you, right? So maybe you try that this week, right? But don't do it out of the blue. Don't blindside them. Don't set them up for a bad thing. If they're depending on you, if they're used to you doing it, and then you just flat out stop without any communication, that's not really fair. That seems cruel. That causes problems. Instead, let them know, say, and do it in an empowering way, right? Here's what I mean. You walk up to them and you say, hey, you know what? I believe in you. I love you. I care about you. I think you're amazing and you can do great things. And I realize that there's something I've been doing for you that you can do yourself, right? And what's that thing, right? This is as important for you as a parent to take this step as it is for them, right? For you to see that you can step into that place and say, you know what? I realize I'm doing something for you. I'm going to back off and I'm going to let you do that and let you do that. And here's what that means, right? That means tomorrow morning, I'm not going to make sure you get out of bed, or I'm not going to remind you to get that appointment or to do that thing. You know, just let's start with something small because it's significant, right? It sets a tone of telling your kid, I believe in you, and things are starting to change, right? So find that thing, tell them about it, and then back off. And if you want to go a little further and they're willing to talk with you about it, you can even say, okay, so if I'm not going to do it for you, how do you think you're going to do it? Do you want to problem solve with that, right? Do you have an idea? You want to talk, right? If they talk with you, great. If they don't, they don't. But you taking that step. And let me know how it goes, right? Did they remember? or did they forget? And when they forget, and when they slip up, and when they mess up, that is not your chance to bash them over the head, right? That's not a "I told you so" or "See, you're so irresponsible," right? You don't go down that path, right? And try to hold back your frustration, because a lot of it is expected. If you've been doing it for a long time, they're probably going to they're going to screw up in some way, right? They're going to fall short. That's an opportunity for compassion, empathy, and teaching, guidance, right? That's a chance to go, okay, so we talked about this. I said I wasn't going to do it. You said you were going to do it. You didn't do it. And this is what happened. So we're not going to go back to the old way. What do you think will help you the next time? Right? How are you going to make the appointment? How are you going to remember to do that task? How are you going to follow through on this? Right? It didn't work this time. What are you going to do? Right? That's empowering, and that's keeping it on them. And I really encourage you to approach it that way. Right? Now, again, I know that seems small. Right? Just like one little reminder, one little thing, but you got to start somewhere, right? And then it builds on that. So that's a great place to start today, right? There are so many other ways or things that you could be thinking about right now. You know, like, okay, well, my kid has ADHD, or they have really strong anxiety, or you don't understand the dynamic in our home, or I encourage you to look back through the videos that we've done. These live chats are good, but the YouTube library, or get in that Facebook group, the Parents of Adult Children Failure to Launch and Addiction Support. There is a lot of great teachings in there as well. And the email list is where you're going to get tools. And for those of you that want to dig deeper, it's there, right? Those tools are there. And I want you to have those tools. So that was the main thing that I was talking about. If there are any questions today, I am open. I got a few more minutes. I will sip my coffee. And if you are watching this afterwards, there is, which most people do, right? Most people are working and doing things, and so they see this later. Put it in the comments. I do respond to those. In fact, there was a question very similar to this. I think I already covered it, but I'll read it. Someone said, because we were talking about this in group, and they said, "But what am I supposed to do when I know that if I don't remind them, he just won't do it? Am I really supposed to sit back and watch him miss appointments, lose his job, or face consequences when I could have prevented it?" There's the dilemma again, right? We talked about this yesterday, right? It's that idea that you are responsible, right? And you've been in that position, like you're holding the lifeline, but you're in a stuck place, right? The question presents the problem right there, the bigger problem, right? As long as you're doing it and they're not doing it, how's it going to change, right? Where's the change going to happen? And I should probably do a video on this, right? Or we can do this in one of our chats. It's the parent anxiety mind, right? Because so many times when I've talked to parents, when we get to this point of, okay, you need to back off. And yes, there's going to be some consequences. Yes, there's going to be some struggle. The parent's mind can go to some really extreme places, right? Even in that, persons was saying, all right, they're going to miss their appointment. They're going to lose their job. They're going to face consequences. It's basically catastrophic, right? Everything's going to fall apart is where their mind goes. And yes, there'll be struggle, but we're not setting our kids up to fail. We're equipping them to succeed, right? We're not tearing them down. We're building them up to be able to face life. But when we shield them from life, right, the consequences, there's no room. And a lot of times there's no motivation. A lot of those same situations are where I see parents who are, my kid's just not motivated to do it. And again, why? Why would they do it? Right? They have someone else doing it for them. Because they're getting behind, right? All their friends are doing this. I know they're depressed about this, or whatever it is, right? Yeah, but they're in that cycle, right? And that's another talk that I give is it's about really connecting with where their mind really is, how they really feel about themselves, their situation, and what's holding them back. Because in your mind, you're like, why wouldn't they take this step? Why wouldn't they do this? That's an excellent question. Why wouldn't they? Right? Until you really connect with why they think the way they think, why they're doing what they're doing, and in a compassionate way, right? Like really trying to understand. You're at a loss. You're at a loss of how to proceed, knowing how to proceed. So that is just an important, very important part of the equation. Okay. Well, I don't see any particular chat today, so I will come back and I will look at the comments later. I really do look at those. And I appreciate everyone listening at whatever point you do. If you have other things that you would like to be addressed in this, suggestions, feel free to make that suggestion. And if you want to let anyone else know about the chat and what we're doing and any of these resources, I've seen that, right? It can be a very helpful thing if you know someone who is struggling. And I saw that just the other day. Someone was reaching out saying that they had a family member whose kid was really struggling, right? And they were looking for resources for them and came across what we're doing here, and they were forwarding that over to their friend. And it's a very loving, kind, considerate thing to do. So if you know someone who needs this, feel free to pass it on to them. But that is our talk for this morning. I will be back tomorrow. We are going to continue this theme of, am I helping or am I making things worse? Right? And we've gone over many of these. The basically cycles that happen where we get into rescuing, resetting, and then things repeat, where we get in these other patterns where we're doing the reminders, where the things we're doing basically to hold stuff together, is that really helping or is it a temporary fix? So we're going to keep on that topic for the rest of the week. I will be back tomorrow at 11:30. Sorry, 10:30 Eastern time. I don't know why I said 11:30. And again, thank you. I'm Jonathan. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. God bless.